I'd now like to welcome to the stage Scott Young. Scott, come and join me, please.
What a great, great time for the City of Light. All eyes on the stunning city.
Welcome to Paris.
The party atmosphere well and truly started.
The French fans are beginning so behind their athletes.
La France, la France, la France! The first gold medal of Paris 2024 for the home team.
You just need to rename her at this point. Simone History Maker Biles.
Yes!
For Nederland, you've got to have your head on. Champion Olympique.
It's Gabriel Medina coming through, an absolute monster.
The performance for the ages. As a broadcaster, you just have to clap because that is greatness.
Léon Marchand, la 4e médaille d'or, la gloire olympique.
Pitcock attacks right the outside, they nearly come together.
Gracias por el apoyo de todo corazón.
Norway take gold.
And here is Kerr now. Hooker on the inside has a big kick. It is Hooker. The upset of upsets.
Joris Godin, le sacre olympique. Les Français font 1-2-3.
Katie Ledecky, an Olympic record.
Carolinas, médaille d'or de Paris 2024.
We could potentially be on the precipice of something historic. Mondo Duplantis is now going to try and break his own world record.
Keep an eye on the clock, though. That's what it's all about. A 6.21 and a world record.
8 gold medals for China.
These athletes are bringing their best here.
Breaking at the Olympics. It's new, it's innovative.
You can see them all leaving it on the floor. Per chiudere la gara dell'Italia nel migliore dei modi.
The moment is Djokovic's.
5 gold medals in one event consecutively. Mikhail Lopez Nunez.
What? No way! That is going to be an incredible score.
Look there at Julian Alfred. She's run away from this field. Thompson coming through, and Lyles is coming through late as well.
Becca Andrade, wow. What a superstar.
The refugee Olympic team boxing star Cindy Ngamba will be taking home a medal.
And she's struggling to get round. Oh no!
And Tobocco is running away with it.
Now it's McLaughlin Neroni against the clock. 50.65 is a world record. Not any longer.
High intensity, high drama, high excitement.
Performance for the ages from Steph Curry. The United States win the gold medal.
That is what it's all about.
Oh my God, baby, you're the Olympic champion.
Everyone is witnessing history. Paris 2024 has just become unglued. That was special.
Until LA. Bonsoir.
Yeah. So it's another fantastic reminder of what took place in Paris last month. Let's not even start at the beginning, rewind some years, if we can. And can you give us an idea of what your mission was and what that vision was for the Olympics when you started planning?
Good afternoon, everybody. Great to see you. It's fantastic to see so far so many great stories being relived and images about the Olympic Games. The story began 2015 when Warner Brothers Discovery, which was then Discovery, signed on as an Olympic broadcaster at this level. And at that time we knew that Paris was going to be something that was going to be quite special. I'd openly admit now, along with the rest of the management, I don't think we ever realised just how special Paris 2024 was going to be. You look back at those images and there's some magic moments in there. There are athletes achieving their dreams. And that's really our mission, was to be there to capture their moment. As we've seen before, OBS do a phenomenal job. They're a world-class broadcaster on an epic scale that captures the live sport. We don't feel a need, from our perspective, to cover any of that. We don't need to add on to any of that. Our job is to tell the story of the Olympians. 10,500 Olympians that descended on France, mostly Paris. For the first time ever, equal split in those 10,500 between men and women, which was really important. It's really important for us as a sports broadcaster. So the stories within the Olympic Games had started long before Paris 2024, and by the time we arrived with our team of some 2,800 strong across the business, not just in Europe, but now including our team in Atlanta, where TNT Sports is also based, and including the depth of sports knowledge, not just with what we do here in Europe. We knew that we'd arrived at a unique opportunity to do something that was going to entertain, surprise and delight audiences.
And as a home fixture for you, effectively, what impact did that have on your approach to editorial and production?
Well, these were our games, and we talked a lot in meetings beforehand about these are our games, which meant for Eurosport, and the cultural home of Eurosport is in France, in Paris, but Eurosport being a broadcaster across 47 markets in 19 languages meant that these games meant everything to our entire broadcast base, to our staff, to our fans, to the narrative that we started making content, which began 1 year before. So 1 year to go is when we started on the road to Paris, and that created some amazing content, which again led into the story of the games and the story of the Olympians.
And tell us now, if you can, a little bit about the design and build of the studios at Hotel Raphael. Before the games, you said you didn't just want studios, you wanted a content house. So what did you mean by that?
We wanted to be immersive, and the previous 3 games had been in Asia, and the 2 games before that had been under the cloud of COVID. And the single biggest impact for us as a broadcaster is COVID separated us from the athletes. So we knew this opportunity coming into Paris, apart from being in our backyard or next door, was that we would be able to reconnect with the athletes and be there when some of those amazing stories were untold. The next part was we can't be in any of our technological remote or green screen studios. I mean, the Cube made a fantastic inroad for us in the Olympics, but we knew we had to be in the heart and the middle of Paris. We also knew the organising committee was bringing some amazing venues to life, and some of the world's great tourist icons in Paris were about to play host to some of the biggest sporting venues. And if that was their mission, which was to be remarkable and revolutionary, as the committee had said to us, then what did that mean for us as a sports broadcaster? So we had to come out of our studios across Europe. We needed a single destination. And I genuinely believe that the Eurosport business, we are the world's most complex sports broadcaster, and there is no second place. The number of markets and the number of languages, the number of reporters that need to follow that story and make it relevant for the local market makes our mission very, very complicated. So when we stood back, we knew we needed a rooftop area where we could be somewhere close to the action. We would be ideally above the action, and then we could create a home, a destination for our own teams to get together. And in a perfect world, we would have a place where the athletes would love to come. So let's have a quick look, because the best way is to show everybody what it looked like. So this is a 5-star fully operating hotel, Hotel Raphael, which was just down the road from Arc de Triomphe, which was on Avenue Kléber, that went down to the Trocadero, which was obviously a major part of the Olympics. We were the only broadcaster allowed in Paris to have a drone, so a little drone airport out the back. This was the experience for every athlete, medal or not. When you joined us on the studio floor, we would welcome you with our team. This was Studio 1, and you'll see here, it didn't take long to work out whether this was a good idea. We were there 3 years beforehand, when we first started thinking about, can we convert the rooftop of a hotel into one of the most technically advanced studio complexes in the world? This leans on our BAU technical operation. So we call it ETT. It was introduced just around the time of Tokyo, and the fact that every camera, every microphone, every screen that you see there can actually be sent back to every market across Europe. So there are 4 studios, 3 stand-up positions, but in addition to that, there are a number of other areas that people started to discover over the 19 days that we were on air there. So if we go maybe through some of the images that were there, this was our story going in. We knew that we wanted to broadcast every moment of the Olympic Games. That meant 3,800 hours of live content from OBS, which we added about another 250 hours of live additional programming on top of that. And I know everyone can read English, so I don't need to go through the entire numbers for you, but it was a fairly Herculean task going in there. That the key piece out of this is 420 plus commentators. The number of people talking about sports every day across our streaming platforms was quite extraordinary. We managed to leap out of the traditional linear broadcast model of Olympic Games and truly harness streaming. So Max and Discovery Plus, Max was launched across Europe just before the Games, really became the superpower of how we put the process of watching the Games into the hands of the viewer.
And you spoke about the business as usual approach and trying to kind of extend that, if you like, to that studio location. Can you just tell us how you've managed to fit together your presence at the IBC towards the north of Paris, the studio at Hotel Raphael, the base at Issy Le Molyneux as well, and then obviously in Chiswick in London as well?
Yeah, so it's interesting that the opening remarks today, looking at where does live sport continue, what technology does it need, and is the OB van dead? I heard heart palpitations by a few people in this room about the concept of OB vans dying. Look, I think we're migrating to new ways of capturing sport and telling that story. Ultimately, for us as a sports broadcaster, we're going to follow the fan, because the fan's going to decide now how they want to consume our sport, when they want to consume it, how they consume it, whether they want to replay it, what the stories are behind that sport they want to gain, plus obviously the action of the sport itself. So I think for us to really understand the mission of being an Olympic broadcaster in Paris, how that converted to our technology we currently have now, and how we then gave that content to the fans, we saw a real shift in time for people wanting now to experience the entire Olympic Games as they could curate their own games. So what we really saw was people deciding they're going to watch the sport they want to the volume that they want through that era. So you could go through and watch swimming, diving, archery all day long, or you could sit back on the linear television and watch the curated feeds that we created for them.
In order to support that, obviously you've spoken about that business as usual approach, but can you tell us what did you have to invest in order to support that ambition and support the numbers that we can see on screen there?
Yeah, I think it's a really good question, because the complexity of Eurosport BAU, business as usual, exists every day thanks to the technology that is actually in place. So the actual investment to uplift to the Olympic Games wasn't that significant. It was how we use the technology that we use every day and the connectivity between Paris, as you said, Issy, as we call it, which is our home base, and London, which is probably the second largest colo for us, but also the outer rim market. So we're studios in Oslo, Munich, Warsaw, Spain. So every one of those local markets has a small production base that makes the centralised content very local for their audience. And that hub and spoke concept of we'll create the base feeds at the centralised colos for you, but by the time it reaches each of the main markets, they need to make sure it turns into a very relevant, engaging piece of content for their local audience. So I think, back to your earlier question, the key part of the connection for us around the IBC and how that linked to Hotel Raphael, or WBD House as it was called, and then into Issy, that is something that we're now very closely looking at in future games. What role does the IBC play for us? Because for these games for the first time, it was very, very different. We didn't need a location at the IBC other than to pick up the feeds from OBS and send them into our network. And I know Matt McDonald is going to be speaking here later on today, and I'm sure he'll be talking more about our technology base and remote production. But I think the biggest learning for us coming out of Paris 2024 from an IBC perspective is how do we become a more remote, more cloud-based Olympic broadcaster?
And let's talk a little bit now about the results and about audiences as well. When we spoke in Paris, you said you spoke about how audiences now understand streaming on sports, and for you it felt as though the penny had dropped. What do you think caused that realisation amongst viewers?
I think time. I think time with viewers to understand streaming. And linear television is not dead. It's in decline, and I don't think that's in debate, but it's far from dead. There is an audience that still loves to get their viewing on linear television. It's very easy. It's what we all know. You pick up the remote control. Ideally, what you want is there. but it is also not a very active relationship with your fan and your customer. And we've seen streaming in place for a long time around the world in how people get their entertainment content. I think that the penny has dropped. The point that I was making then during the games was that somebody has suddenly realised, now I get it, sport on streaming means I can watch what I want, when I want, and wherever I want, and we saw that escalate fast. So on August 4, which was the largest day, the largest sport day during the games, we did 600 million minutes on that day. We did 7 billion streaming minutes across the 19 days of the games, which, if the calculator is right, is roughly 13,300 days of one person sitting in front of a laptop watching streaming. The numbers become so ridiculous, but what you start to understand is the audience is there, they're passionately connected to the content, and if you give them the power to watch your content in the palm of their hands, they now know how to drive that.
So the lessons that you might have learned from Paris, how will that inform your future strategy of how you share content with viewers?
We are a sports streaming business. We are a content business. Warner Brothers Discovery globally is very focused on being a content business, a storyteller, and we have no other role. We're not a telco. We don't sell boxes. We focus every day on how we build out the very best sports and entertainment and news business around the world. I think we'll now take the learnings from Paris and continue to amplify the connectivity between entertainment content and sport, and in the gaps between the Olympic Games. And for us as a European broadcaster, the Winter Olympics is as important as summer. Many people sort of look straight to Los Angeles. Milano Cortina is very important for us. Norway and Sweden top the medal charts in Beijing. We know that many of our markets across Europe were looking forward to equally an engaging European Winter Games, as we've had, the last two have been away in Asia. So I think for us, we're going to take the learning of connectivity. We now know that hopefully the penny that has dropped remains in focus for everybody. Our BAU sports operation will continue to drive sport on streaming every day. And we hope that when we get to Milano Cortina, and then definitely Los Angeles 28, which is the home of Warner Brothers, right, we're going to see a real escalation of how audiences love to get consume sport via streaming.
And for Milano Cortina, obviously it's a different set of competitions that you'll be covering, but also a very different setup in the sense that first Olympics officially split over different cities. So what does that mean for your approach? And just tell us a little bit about how plans are progressing for that as well.
It is a geographical challenge, but not a technical challenge. And I think that's how we're sitting back now and looking at Milano Cortina going, we will still receive the feeds from OBS. We can still go to the IBC, patch in as we normally do, and therefore those games become no different. But for us as storytellers following the Olympians, that's where the challenge comes in, because we need to go where they are. So traversing across the 6 clusters, as they're called, between Milano and Cortina, and being there where the stories happen in a winter environment where the roads necessarily aren't always open, the weather isn't necessarily always as friendly as it was in Paris. That's sort of some of the challenges that we've got. But we look to that as opportunities. I know we're going to be able to broadcast the competition because that is BAU Olympics. Sending our teams out in the field to connect with each of their stars that are relevant back to their base, that's what we're currently working on.
Have you been scoping out rooftop hotel locations, or is it going to be a bit too chilly for that?
It might be a bit chilly if we did that, so I think we need to consider. But yes, I mean, we already have a plan. They've already had 2 world broadcaster meetings in Milan, so we're aware of the challenge. We can't just take a sizable crew of hundreds of people for a number of reasons. I think we're all headed in an environment where remote production should play a role. It should rightly play a role for sustainability. I mean, it is great for cost containment for all those in finance in the audience. But equally, how do we help people actually connect without needing to actually get in a car, drive 4 hours and put a microphone in front of somebody? So I think the way we're now looking at Milano Cortina needs to innovate the delivery of the games, and we spend most of our time in between the Olympics talking to OBS about sports innovation, and that includes how they're going to connect the games to Warner Brothers Discovery.
And just briefly, because we've just got 1 minute left, give us an idea as well, if you can, of where you are with plans for LA 28 as well.
I think the idea of us being a sports and entertainment business is pretty much how you're going to see the Olympics in Los Angeles. It is the cultural home of Warner Brothers. It is very much drives a large part of our entertainment across the entire business, whether it be theatrical or television. So I think we now have some great learnings about how we can interact. I mean, OBS for the first time introduced a red carpet ceremony for the opening ceremony. I mean, immediately we've gone to what does that mean for us in LA, for the many A-list actors and talents we have across the different genres there. So I fully expect, and I'm trying to do the Olympics in order in which they turn up. But you know, LA is going to be on our radar pretty quickly, and I fully expect our entertainment team in LA, who were all out in Paris, they saw it, they were all on that rooftop, they all took photos, and I know they're all sitting around going, where is this rooftop in Los Angeles? So that'll be on the mission board fairly quickly.
Excellent. Well, Scott, thank you very much for that. Really appreciate you taking the time to share all of those insights. Please join me in thanking Scott.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.